So today what I want to do is talk about number 4 on Joe Naso's list of 10, and that is the girl on Mount Tam. So we covered this pretty extensively, I felt, for the television show Death Row Confidential, Secrets of a Serial Killer. However, there was some controversy about it. And what that controversy was is that Joe Naso, while on San Quentin's death row, allegedly, and I believe, told Bill Noguera he had killed 2 women that he placed on Mount Tam. So I guess the trick was trying to figure out which one he was talking about for his list of 10. And so how I went about that is when I got all the notes from Bill Noguera and was going through, he had mentioned in there, and I'll get into this one specifically in more detail later, but Joe had mentioned to Bill that he had killed a girl after he met her at Fisherman's Wharf in San Francisco. She was an aspiring singer and had a white suit on or something to that extent. And he had killed her and placed her on Mount Tam, as well as this girl that we're going to talk about today. So for the show, what the producers ended up doing after we had talked about it for a while, I wasn't comfortable with it at first, is that they went ahead and said that Pam Lamson, who I found out later was the second girl that Joe had placed on Mount Tam after he killed her. And again, we'll get into that story in another episode. But for television purposes, they wanted to put her as number 4 on the list, girl on Mount Tam. And, they framed it as this. Is it possible that he's referring to Pam Lamson as number 4 on the list? Sure, it's possible. But I didn't believe it. I believe that the girl on Mount Tam, as he's referring to it, specifically on the list of 10. Remember, the list of 10 is his favorite kills and ultimately sexual conquests as well. That is an unknown. Okay. I haven't been able to figure that out, nor have the investigators in, I believe it's going to be Marin County. So if you remember back to the television show where I take cadaver dogs to Mount Tam, and I'm looking for specific things, a ravine. Okay, that's what we're going to get into here today. Obviously, I wasn't looking for Pam Lamson because Pam Lamson was found. And I'll get into why I don't believe he was talking about Pam Lamson, specifically dates, as we go forward here. But there was a lot of information that Joe Naso had shared with Bill Noguera about specifically this girl from Mount Tam, which gave me a lot of clues to try to figure out, okay, who is this girl? Okay. I didn't figure it out. But I think I'm going to show you some pictures today, and I feel that this is the girl on Mount Tam. And I will need your help in order to share these pictures, in order to find out, hey, is this girl still alive? Like episode 1, Georgia Durant? Or is she a victim? So let's get into specific notes that Joe Naso, depraved serial killer, told Bill Noguera, who relayed it to me. Girl on Mount Tam, number 4 on the top 10 list. Okay, she's a short-haired redhead. There's a little bit of wiggle room here because is she strawberry blonde, or is she straight redhead? These are things that are variables that you have to play with as an investigator to try to figure out who Joe Naso was talking about. She went by Leslie. She was 22 years old. They met in an Oakland A's game on May 10th, 1975. She dropped out of high school in Los Angeles. Again, he gave specific directions, as you saw in the television show, and how in episode 1, I think, or maybe it was 2, the girl near Healdsburg. Remember the directions, specific directions, and I said I had a hard time with that to begin with, but then I could see Joe like reliving it as he's driving it and giving it. He did that again here, in which they did show for the most part on the television show, so I won't reiterate it much. But right there, that I gave you a bunch of clues. What was the most important clue? Her name, Leslie, but remember, Joe Naso isn't always great with names. They were just objects to him. So sometimes he messes up names. He gave an age, 22. It's pretty specific, so I would take that one and say, yeah, he's probably right. But, when you're searching, let's do a broader search. Let's go 18 to, 25 and see what we come up with. We talked about the hair, the color of hair. But more importantly, and this is how I vetted, this is one of the specific items that I vetted Bill Noguera with. He gave a date, May 10th, 1975. He met her at an Oakland A's game. Now, going through Joe Naso's personal effects, I know that he was a sports nut. He loved sports. And I also know that he posed as a photographer, a team photographer for the Oakland A's. And we'll get into that aspect of it when we talk about the Pam Lamson murder. So, what's the first thing that you do? This is the beauty of the internet nowadays. You do a historical research and see, number one, hey, was there a game in Oakland that day? Okay, so we'll get into that. But here in Bill's notes, he wrote, Joe Naso killed her and dumped her on Mount Tam, May 10th, 1975. And then in quotations, how could anyone forget Game 2 of a series against the New York Yankees? So now I have 2 points of reference. I have May 10th, 1975, Oakland A's game. Okay, I can look that up and see if Oakland even played at home that game or that day. Number 2, let's go a step further and see who they played. They played the Cardinals, play the Red Sox, or did they play the Yankees like he has Joe Naso quoted as saying? So I look it up, and sure enough, guess what? Oakland A's did have a home game that day, May 10th, 1975, and that's right, they played the Yankees. So when I found that information to be true and correct, I really started to believe Bill Noguera. Now, could Bill Noguera have looked that up? People, especially for the show, always wanted me to say there's no way he could find out that information in prison. He didn't have access to that information. I don't know if that's exactly true. It's probably true. Because on death row, from what I understand it, he didn't have access to that type of information. I'm sure he could find out if he really wanted to and put that in there to throw, I don't know, me off or, to make his story better if he was making something up. But it was too detailed for me of a non-important matter. Let me explain that. When somebody's making something up about, let's say, murder, let's say Mount Tam, why wouldn't Bill Noguera say if he was looking stuff up on the internet, why wouldn't he look up a missing person take her information, Susan, May 10th, 1975, found here. It's an unsolved homicide, whatever it is. And then put that into his notes. So that way, when I come across it, I'm like, oh, my goodness, he's telling the truth. It's right here. Susan, May 10th, 1975, found here. It's everything that Bill said. That's what you do when you're a liar. Bill Noguera didn't do that. His important information that he relayed, May 10th, 1975, has nothing to do with an actual murder. So because of that, I gave him 100% credibility. So May 10th, 1975. What more information can I learn? Well, he said that Joe Naso had a press pass as the Oakland A's photographer and met his victim that way. He met her in the locker room area of the A's press section and offered to take pictures of her to help her modeling career. Now, this is going to be extremely important when we get to Pam Lamson, so remember it. And remember what I said about Ted Bundy in the previous videos in the ruse. When you find a ruse that works, you stick with it. Her name was Leslie, and she had short red hair. Leslie told Naso that she came to the game alone and took the bus. Leslie also told Joe that she liked baseball players and frequented coming to games and talking to the players. And then it talks about the directions to where he took her outside to photograph her. During the drive there, which I drove that route from the Oakland Coliseum to Mount Tam near Arturo Trail, the West Peak. That's specifically where he said he dumped this girl and took photos of her. I took that route. That's a long route. It was a long drive, okay? It's a long drive to sit in silence. So this next part also I thought had a lot of credibility, that they would engage in conversation. Yes, Joe Naso knew what he was going to do to this girl the minute he tried picking her up and using the ruse about photography. That's not a ruse. That's what he does, but it helps because his purpose isn't to just photograph them. It's to sexually assault and kill them. So there was a lot of time to talk and get to know things. And some things stuck with Joe Naso almost 50 years later, 40 years later, that he relayed that information to Bill Noguera. My new book, Echoes of Evil, Unmasking the Minds of Infamous Killers. What would I do if I had the opportunity to go back and interview infamous killers, people who have killed? What if I was able to observe them without them knowing? People like Jeffrey Dahmer, Ted Bundy, John Wayne Gacy, or even earlier than that, Billy the Kid, right? Seth Bullock, people don't know. Wyatt Earp, these people have killed. So I want to talk to them. Hey, what's it like to murder? What is your pre and post offense behaviors? What did you do? What were you thinking? How does it affect you? Do you have remorse? Do you have regret? And I'm able to do that in this book. Okay. Bonnie and Clyde, John Dillinger, The Mafia with Al Capone, Roy DeMeo, Anthony Spilaccio, talk to Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday, Timothy McVeigh, okay? The ideologies of some people and why they decide to kill. Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, Charles Manson, who may or may not have actually killed anybody. Richard Speck, who killed 8 nurses, all in one night. I took nonfiction, blended it in with fiction, and came up with Echoes of Evil. Order the book, 400 and some odd pages. You will not be disappointed if you like true crime and maybe a little bit of fiction weaved in. Thanks for watching. Mains out. So here are some more clues about the identity of the girl on Mount Tam. During the drive, Joe learned a lot about Leslie. She'd revealed that she had been on her own since she was 16 when her parents kicked her out of their home when she became pregnant. It's a good clue. And they refused to let her come back when she aborted the child because her parents felt she was a bad influence on her younger sister. So here's a great clue. And it's very hard to find that information on the internet, meaning when I'm researching, trying to figure out who the girl on Mount Tam is, there's not many places that say, well, she became pregnant at age 16, had an abortion, and her parents kicked her out because of being a bad influence on her younger sister. You're not going to find that in a missing person report. Newspaper article, yes, but not all missing persons are put in newspaper, or a newspaper article is written about them. Charlotte Cook, I became very lucky, but she wasn't a missing person. She was an unidentified body to begin with. So here, for you guys, right there in that sentence, you have a great clue. Okay, she's from L.A., Los Angeles. She's kicked out of her house at age 16 for becoming pregnant. She gets an abortion, but her parents won't let her back in because she's a bad influence on her younger sister. So she has a younger sister. Okay, maybe her sister's watching this. And this is why this platform is so important. Since then, the 22-year-old had gone from crashing at friends' home until she dropped out of high school in Los Angeles area, and had also had a string of boyfriends that never seemed to work out. After killing her, he picked her up and walked over to a small ravine just to the right of the meadow and dumped her there out of sight. He walked back to his car, picked up his blanket, and drove away. When I asked him about why he chose that location to dump this victim, Joe told me how the sleeping lady in Mount Tamapolis reminded him of Camelot, the Lady of the Lake in King Arthur. He even referred to a location close to where he had left her named Arturo Trail next to the West Peak. And I showed all that, and they showed all that in the television show. So there's a lot of information there, right, to follow up on to try to figure out who his victim is. And I spent a lot of time on it. And there was a lot of people that I thought fit, but ultimately I wasn't confident about, so I didn't pursue it any further for the show. One of the girls that I thought it could have been was from episode 1, the girl with the red bandana. And I thought that was Gail Marie Dahl. Turns out I was completely wrong about that. That girl's name was Georgia Durant. She was alive and well. She was a model. But why did I think that? What's the one clue that we haven't talked about yet? Did any of you guys figure it out? Think about where he took her. Joe Naso took her into a wooded setting, right, to photograph her. If he had photographs of her, and remember, in his house, he had thousands of photographs of women. If she was in that lot of 1,000, what would you be looking for? And how could you deduce and deduct through the thousands of photographs to get down to, hey, this might be her? Right. Somebody answered it. An outdoor setting. She never would have made it to an indoor setting. Meaning, with Georgia Durant, the girl with the red bandana, when I first thought that she was possibly the girl on Mount Tam, because what? The photograph, as you see here, is an outdoor setting. However, I found one other photograph of her in Naso's belongings that was an indoor setting. So to me, that ruled her out. Because Naso found this girl at an Oakland A's game, took her directly to Mount Tam, where he killed her. And maybe he photographed, maybe he didn't, but he more than likely did, like he did his other victims. So what I was looking for in these thousands of photographs was an outdoor setting only. Now I found, I don't know, let's just say 100 that matched that. Then you start looking at, okay, are they in other indoor settings? If they are, let's get rid of them. So then you started at 1,000, it narrowed down to 100. Now you're down to 25. Now what else can we narrow it down by? Age. Okay, that took out 5 more because they were in their 40s, 50s. And then the color of hair. Okay. So once you're able to start up here and start deducing, you get down to a couple. Okay, maybe this is the person. So I did that. And one other huge, very minute detail. And remember, as a detective, this is very important. And I learned this, I didn't learn it, but a great example of that is in the movie Heat. Remember that with Al Pacino and Robert De Niro? One little word, one little quip can change an investigation. And you always have to be aware of that. When Al Pacino goes to meet with, I think it's Tone Loc, but I don't know for sure. It just had that same voice. He was a confidential informant. And he was like, give me what you got. Tell me what you know. And it wasn't anything that Pacino wanted to hear. So he started to walk away. And the guy said, I'm telling you, this slick ain't no joke. Well, Pacino remembered that one of the guards that got killed in the case that he was working got referred to as Slick. Just that one word. Pacino turned around, sat down. He knew he was on to something. Just like that. And I love that example. That's great, great detective work. Well, it's the same thing here. I read you the clues that Bill had wrote down. But there was one that I didn't read you. And it was just like a passing by type of thing that Joe said. But Bill wrote it down, but he didn't make a big deal of it. And it was that she had an appendix scar. That's a huge clue. Okay? And because of that, now you're really able to narrow it down, right? And I believe I did. So, one of the things that was different about the girl on Mount Tam compared to some of the others, all but one of the others, I believe, was that Joe Naso actually showed a picture of the girl on Mount Tam to Bill Noguera. That's right. He showed one of his victims. Now, how do they even have pictures of their victims? It's because number one, he gets everything in discovery, okay, and he worked as his own attorney, so he has everything, and he had a picture of the girl on Mount Tam. Now that doesn't relate to the trial or anything because nobody knows who she was, but he had his pictures. Remember the collage? It adorns the front of my binder, but see all those victims? Some of them are victims, some of them aren't. See Bill or Joe Naso in the center there? This is what he gifted Bill Noguera. So he has that stuff. So he can relive his crimes every single day. But Bill remembers seeing a picture who Joe said, hey, this is the girl on Mount Tam. Now, I believe that I had figured it out through a process of elimination that we just went through. And I took this picture and I showed Bill Noguera. I'd sent it to him and said, hey, is this the picture that Joe Naso showed you as the girl on Mount Tam? And he's like, I thought her hair was a little redder. It's been 10 years since I've seen the picture. Well, to me, it wasn't a no. Okay? It wasn't a definitive yes. But the girl that I think could possibly be the girl on Mount Tam is shown here in an outdoor setting. No indoor settings at all. This is it. She has strawberry blonde hair. And thank goodness I was able to zoom in with today's technology and see this. Is that an appendix scar? To me, I believe it was. And so this is the girl that I felt is the victim of the girl on Mount Tam, number 4 on Joe Naso's list. But I don't know who she is. These pictures are from his private photographs taken during a search warrant, and she has not been identified. I do not believe, I'm positive, the police have never released this information. And the reason I'm doing so is because I believe that she's the girl on Mount Tam. And I need to know who she is so I can contact her family and say, I believe I know what happened to your daughter. Remember, that's not what a good investigator does. That's what a good human being does. And that's what I strive to be. And I hope everybody else strives to be that as well. But all the clues for the girl on Mount Tam seem to match. Yes, she wasn't a redhead, strawberry blonde, but that's what I saw. Now, let me preface this by saying, just because she was a victim of Joe Naso's doesn't mean that he has a photograph of her or that police took photograph. Now, he certainly did have some of his victims' photographs, but some of them he did not. So this could be just a person that he photographed and modeled, and she's alive and well, and I hope that's the case. And if it is, I want to know that as well. Okay? And then, we can start another search. But if Joe Naso showed Bill Noguera a photograph and said, this is the girl on Mount Tam, he photographed her. Maybe we don't have it, but it's out there somewhere. So that is the information about the girl on Mount Tam, number 4. I'll leave you with a couple other photographs and some that you've already seen of the girl who I believe could be the girl on Mount Tam. Let's identify her. Okay? Let's share this video or share these pictures and let's try to identify who it is. So that way we can eliminate her and move on, or we can say, yes, she is a missing person. Hey, if we identify her and she's a missing person from California or New York, but I'm going to say obviously California because of May 10th, 1975, the Oakland A's game, I'm very confident in saying she would be a victim of Joe Naso's. Okay? A lot of this is going to tie back in when we talk about Pam Lampson. I might just do that next. Keep this fresh in your mind. And a lot, obviously, that he did, Joe Naso, with this victim, he did with Pam Lampson. And we'll get into that whenever that episode is. Thanks for watching. I appreciate all your support. And please stay kind to each other. Mains out.